The twin sons of Draconeth cast long shadows across the obsidian temple as Jake Morrison crouched behind a cluster of purple ferns, watching another group of warriors march toward their deaths. He had seen this happen 4 times in the past month, and it never got easier to witness. These were Centauri soldiers, tall and graceful with silver armor that caught the morning light. They moved in perfect formation, their energy weapons humming with ready power. Jake counted 8 of them, each one standing at least 7 feet tall. Their leader carried a plasma lance that glowed bright blue, and Jake knew from his father's old military stories that such weapons could cut through starship hulls. The temple entrance remained dark and silent as the warriors approached. Jake held his breath, his fingers digging into the soft earth. He wanted to shout a warning, to tell them to run, but he had learned weeks ago that shouting only made the dragon come faster. The massive head emerged from the darkness without sound. One moment the entrance was empty, and the next, the dragon was simply there. Its scales shifted colors like oil on water, reflecting purples and greens and golds that hurt to look at directly. The creature's eyes were the worst part, ancient and knowing, filled with something that looked almost like sadness. The Centauri leader raised his plasma lance and spoke in a commanding voice that echoed across the clearing. Jake's translator implant, the only piece of technology still working from his family's crashed colony ship, converted the words. Ancient Guardian, we come to claim what is ours by right of strength. Stand aside or face the combined might of the Centauri Empire. The dragon's response was swift and terrible. It moved faster than something that massive had any right to move. The plasma lance clattered to the stone steps, its owner simply gone. The other warriors opened fire, their energy beams striking scales that absorbed the light like a black hole swallows stars. In less than 30 seconds, the clearing was empty again, except for scattered weapons and the faint smell of ozone. Jake slumped against the tree behind him, his empty stomach churning. He had not eaten in 2 days. The nutrient paste from his emergency kit had run out a week ago, and the small game he managed to trap was barely enough to keep him alive. He was thin now, his clothes hanging loose on his 14-year-old frame. His eyes drifted to the temple courtyard, visible through the massive entrance once the dragon retreated. He had scouted the area carefully over the past weeks, using the old binoculars from his survival pack. Inside that courtyard grew trees heavy with orange fruit. He had seen birds eating them, which meant they were probably safe for consumption. Probably. Jake knew what everyone in the galaxy knew about Draconeth. The Galactic Council had issued the challenge 300 years ago. Retrieve the Nexus core from within the temple, and your species would receive technology that could reshape worlds. Every major civilization had sent champions. The Kravik had sent 50 of their best warriors in powered battlesuits. The Mekron had sent synthetic soldiers that felt no fear. None had returned. The dragon killed everyone who entered. Everyone. Jake looked down at his hands. They were small and dirty, with cuts that had healed poorly. He was no warrior. He was just a kid from a colony ship that had suffered a catastrophic drive failure. His parents and 2 sisters had died in the crash. For 3 months, he had survived alone in Draconeth's wilderness, avoiding the predators and eating whatever he could find. Now there was nothing left to find. The fruit in the temple courtyard was his only option. He could try to survive another week on insects and hope, or he could walk through that entrance and at least die with a full stomach. The choice was not really a choice at all. As the suns climbed higher, Jake made his decision. He would go at dawn tomorrow, when the light was best. He would walk slowly with his hands visible and empty. He would not carry anything that looked like a weapon. Maybe the dragon would kill him quickly. Maybe it would not hurt too much. That night, Jake sat by a small fire and looked up at the unfamiliar stars. Somewhere out there, Earth continued on without him. His school friends were probably worrying about exams and games, not about ancient dragons and impossible tests. He pulled his father's jacket tighter around his shoulders and tried not to think about how much he missed home. When dawn came, Jake stood and began walking toward the temple. He did not look back. Jake's legs felt like water as he climbed the obsidian steps. Each footfall echoed across the empty plaza, announcing his approach to whatever waited inside. He kept his hands at his sides, palms forward, making himself as non-threatening as possible. Not that it would matter. He had seen what the dragon did to warriors with plasma cannons. What chance did one skinny human boy have? The entrance loomed before him, a massive archway carved with symbols he could not read. The darkness beyond seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Jake stopped at the threshold, his mouth dry despite the morning humidity. This was it. This was where he would die. The dragons had emerged from the shadows like a moon rising over a dark ocean. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Up close, the creature was even more magnificent and terrifying than he had imagined. Its scales were not just colorful. They held entire galaxies within them, swirling nebulas of light that made his eyes water. Each tooth was as long as his forearm. The golden eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him feel transparent, as if the dragon could see every thought he had ever had. Jake waited for the end. His heart hammered, so hard he thought his ribs might crack. Seconds stretched into minutes. The dragon stared at him, its massive head tilted slightly as if considering a puzzle. Jake noticed something he had never seen in his weeks of watching. The dragon's eyes were not filled with rage or hunger. They held something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or confusion. Then, impossibly, the dragon moved backward. Its enormous body shifted deeper into the temple, creating a path where none had existed before. The golden eyes never left Jake, but the way was clear. Jake stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Was this a trick? Did the dragon toy with its prey before killing them? But no, he had watched other warriors die. There had been no games, no delays, just swift, brutal finality. "Move, you idiot," Jake whispered to himself. His legs obeyed before his brain caught up, carrying him forward into the temple. The air inside was cool and smelled of ancient stone and something else, something like cinnamon and metal mixed together. The interior was vast, much larger than the outside suggested was possible. Columns rose to a ceiling lost in shadows. The walls were covered in murals that glowed with soft bioluminescence, casting everything in shades of blue and green. Jake walked slowly, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The murals told a story. Jake moved closer to examine them, temporarily forgetting his fear in the face of such artistry. The first images showed the dragon among stars, but it looked different, younger somehow, though Jake could not explain how he knew that. In these early pictures, the dragon was surrounded by other creatures, all working together on massive construction projects that spanned solar systems. Then the murals changed. War came to the images. The dragon fought alongside beings Jake did not recognize, facing enemies that looked like living shadows. Entire worlds burned in these panels. The dragon's eyes in these pictures blazed with fury. The later murals grew darker in tone. The dragon was shown alone now, bound in chains of light that looked like they caused pain. Smaller beings, hundreds of different species, stood around it, fear and determination on their faces. They were sealing it here, punishing it for something. Jake found the Nexus core in the central chamber, just as the stories described. It sat on a simple pedestal, a sphere of crystal material that pulsed with inner light. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, and every instinct Jake possessed screamed at him not to touch it. Instead, he knelt down and examined the base of the pedestal. More carvings, these ones cruder, as if made by claws rather than tools. Tally marks covered the stone, thousands of them, each one representing a life taken. Jake's throat tightened. At the very bottom, almost hidden in shadow, were words scratched in ancient galactic standard, a language his translator could barely parse. The translation came through broken and uncertain. How many more before one comes, who does not seek to rule others? Jake sat back on his heels, his hunger forgotten. The dragon was not just a guardian. It was a prisoner. And every warrior who came seeking power only proved why it needed to stay here, killing those who would misuse what they found. A sound behind him made Jake spin around. The dragon had entered the chamber silently, its massive form somehow graceful despite its size. It watched him with those ancient eyes, waiting, and for the first time since entering the temple, Jake understood that he might actually survive this. The dragon's voice did not come through Jake's ears. It resonated directly in his mind, deep and ancient like the rumble of continental plates shifting beneath the earth. "You do not take the prize, small one?" Jake scrambled backward, his heart leaping into his throat. He had not expected the creature to speak. Warriors had described the dragon as a mindless beast, a biological weapon left behind by a dead civilization. But there was nothing mindless in that voice. It carried weight, centuries of weight, millennia perhaps. I just came for food, Jake stammered, pointing toward the courtyard visible through a side archway. The fruit trees swayed gently in the breeze. I didn't know about any prize. I'm just trying not to starve. The dragon moved closer, each step causing the floor to tremble slightly. Jake pressed his back against the pedestal, trapped but strangely not as terrified as he had been outside. Up close, he could see scars beneath the shimmering scales, old wounds that told stories of ancient battles. Truth, the dragon said, and something like surprise colored its mental voice. You speak truth. In 10,000 cycles, none have spoken truth in this place. Jake swallowed hard. 10,000 years? You've been here for 10,000 years. The dragon lowered its massive head until one golden eye was level with Jake's face. The eye was larger than Jake's entire body, and within it he could see his own reflection, small and fragile and utterly insignificant. I was forged in progenitor wars, made to break worlds. I broke many. Too many. The dragon's voice carried an emotion Jake had not expected. Regret. Deep, aching regret that felt older than mountains. When the wars ended, those who remained feared what I was, what I could do. They could not destroy me. I was made too well. So they bound me here and gave me purpose. Guard the Nexus core. Destroy those who would claim it. Kill any who seek power over others. Jake looked at the tally marks on the pedestal base with new understanding. All those warriors, they all wanted power? They wanted glory, dominance, technology to conquer their enemies, status among their kind. The dragon pulled back slightly. I sense their intentions when they approach. Ambition burns bright in most beings. It tastes like acid and smoke. But you, the dragon's head tilted. You taste of fear and hunger and loneliness. Nothing more. Jake felt tears prick his eyes. He wiped them away quickly, embarrassed. My family died. I'm alone. I just want to survive another day. Survival, the dragon repeated, as if tasting the word. Not conquest, not glory, just survival. The creature made a sound that might have been a laugh or sigh. Perhaps that is why the binding let you pass. You seek nothing I am sworn to guard against. They sat in silence for a moment, boy and dragon, both prisoners of circumstance in their own ways. Jake noticed the dragon's breathing was labored, as if each breath caused pain. He thought of the chains of light in the murals. Does it hurt? Jake asked quietly, being bound here? The dragon's eye widened slightly. No one has asked me that before. Well, does it? Every moment of every day for 10 millennia. Jake stood up, his fear forgotten in the face of such suffering. He looked at the Nexus core, then back at the dragon. What would happen if someone took that thing? What would it do to you? The one who claims the core would command me. I would become their weapon once more, bound to their will until they die. Then the binding would reset, and I would return to my vigil here. That's awful, Jake said without thinking. Then he realized he was talking to a creature that could swallow him whole. Sorry, I just mean, that's no way to exist. The dragon moved closer again, its massive head lowering until it was mere feet from Jake. If you could command me, small human, what would you have me do? Jake thought about the question seriously. He could ask the dragon to take him home to Earth. He could ask it to provide food and shelter. He could ask for anything, and this ancient, powerful being would have to obey. Instead, he asked, would you want to be free? Like actually free? The dragon went completely still. For a long moment, nothing moved except the dust motes floating in the dim light. When the dragon spoke again, its voice was barely a whisper in Jake's mind. What? If you could choose, Jake continued, would you want to be free of this place? Free of having to guard this thing and kill people? The dragon's eye glistened with something that looked impossibly like tears, more than anything in existence. Jake nodded slowly. Then we should figure out how to make that happen. The Nexus core erupted with light the moment Jake, touched it. He had not meant to. The dragon had gently pushed his hand toward it with one enormous claw, saying something about needing to understand the binding before they could break it. The crystal sphere blazed like a newborn star, and energy rippled outward from the temple in waves that Jake could feel in his bones. What did I do? Jake shouted over the humming sound that filled the chamber. You triggered the victory signal, the dragon replied, its mental voice calm despite the chaos. The galaxy now knows someone has passed my trial. Jake's stomach dropped. Can we turn it off? No. They will come now. Many will come. The dragon was right. Within 3 days, the sky above Draconet filled with ships. Dozens of them, representing every major civilization in the Galactic Council. They landed in the plain surrounding the temple, their metal hulls gleaming in the twin suns. Jake watched from the temple entrance, the dragon standing protectively beside him. The delegations approached together, a rainbow of alien species walking side by side. Jake recognized some from his school lessons, the towering Kravik with their thick armor plating, the graceful Senhari with their silver skin, the crystalline Mechron that looked like living glass. Behind them came hundreds more species he had never seen before. An elderly Kravik stepped forward, his armor decorated with medals and scars. His translator device projected his words in clear English. I am War Leader Thrak. We demand to see the human who claims to have conquered the eternal WYRM. I didn't conquer anyone, Jake called back, his voice sounding small despite his best efforts. I just talked to him. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several species exchanged glances that Jake could not interpret. The dragon shifted beside him, and the murmuring stopped instantly. A Senhari woman with elaborate robes stepped forward next. The trial has stood for 3 centuries. Our greatest champions fell to this creature. How did a human child succeed where they failed? Jake opened his mouth to answer, but the dragon's voice filled everyone's minds at once. The assembled aliens stumbled backward in shock. The child did not seek conquest. He sought survival. He passed because he wanted nothing I was bound to deny. Impossible, Thrak growled. The trial tests strength and worthiness to wield power. It cannot be passed through weakness. Then, perhaps, a human voice called from the crowd. You misunderstood the trial from the beginning. A woman pushed through to the front. Human, middle-aged, wearing the uniform of Earth's Xenoanthropology Corps. Her name tag read Dr. Sarachun. She looked at Jake with a mixture of wonder and concern. Humanity is new to the galactic community. Dr. Chen continued, addressing the crowd. We've only had faster-than-light travel for 60 years. We haven't fought the ancient wars. We don't carry the grudges and territorial instincts that older species developed over millennia. This boy didn't fail the test. Everyone else did. They came seeking dominance. He came seeking food. Thrak's face twisted with anger. You claim human weakness is somehow superior to our strength? I will prove otherwise. He gestured, and a group of Kravik warriors in advanced combat suits began marching toward the temple. No, wait, Jake started, but it was too late. The dragon moved like lightning. One moment it stood beside Jake. The next it was among the Kravik warriors. The battle was over before it began. Armor crumpled like paper. Energy weapons fired and hit nothing. In seconds, the warriors were gone, and the dragon returned to Jake's side, settling down with its massive head near the boy's feet. The silence that followed was absolute. Jake reached out hesitantly and placed his hand on the dragon's scaled snout. The creature's eye closed briefly, almost like a cat accepting affection. By the ancestors, someone whispered in the crowd. Dr. Chen approached slowly, her hands raised peacefully. May I speak with you, Jake? Jake nodded, grateful to see another human. As she climbed the temple steps, she spoke quietly. Do you understand what you've done? What this means? Not really, Jake admitted. I just didn't want anyone else to die. That creature has been the galaxy's boogeyman for centuries. The ultimate test of worthiness. And it's treating you like... She paused, searching for words. Like a friend. Below them, the alien delegations argued among themselves. Some demanded Jake demonstrate his control over the dragon. Others insisted humans be given immediate seats on the Galactic Council. A few suggested taking Jake into protective custody for study. Jake looked at the dragon, then at the Nexus core still glowing in the temple behind him. Dr. Chun, how do you break an ancient magical binding? She blinked in surprise. Why would you want to? Then understanding dawned on her face. Oh no, Jake, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, the Council will never allow it. They don't get a vote, Jake said quietly. The Galactic Council assembled in the temple courtyard 3 days later, their temporary pavilion casting shadows across the ancient stones. Jake stood before them, a 14-year-old boy facing representatives of 200 civilizations. The dragon waited in the temple entrance behind him, a silent mountain of scales and ancient power. Chancellor Varix, a being that looked like floating crystal formations, spoke first. Its voice chimed like bells. Jake Morrison of Earth, you have passed a trial that has defeated our greatest champions. The Nexus core is yours to claim. With it, you will command eternal WRM and gain access to technology that will elevate humanity to the highest ranks of galactic civilization. Jake had barely slept in 3 days. Dr. Chun had shown him what the Nexus core could do. It was not just a power source. It was a key to incredible technology. Terraform engines that could turn barren worlds into paradises. Weapons that could protect Earth from any threat. Medical advances that could cure diseases his people still struggle with. Earth's ambassador, a nervous man named Collins, had pulled Jake aside that morning. Son, do you understand what you're holding? Earth has 3 billion people living in struggling colonies. We're barely keeping up with the established powers. This could change everything for us. Jake had understood. He had thought about his parents and sisters, dead because their colony ship had outdated engines that failed. He thought about the kids back home, who would benefit from better technology. He thought about all the good he could do. But he had also spent 3 days talking with the dragon. The creature had explained the true nature of the Nexus core. It was not just a tool. It was a prison. The core did not simply allow someone to command the dragon. It bound the dragon to their will completely, erasing its choice, its freedom, its very self. Every previous wielder had used it, and each time the dragon's spirit had been crushed a little more under the weight of servitude. The binding resets when the wielder dies. The dragon had told him, I return here to wait for the next one who passes. For 10,000 years, I have hoped someone would pass the trial and be wise enough to refuse the prize. But hope is a painful thing when it is never fulfilled. Now Jake stood before the council, the weight of his entire species' future on his shoulders. Chancellor Varix gestured toward the temple. Claim the core, young human. Take your place among the powers of the galaxy. Jake walked slowly into the temple. The assembled delegates followed, hundreds of beings crowding into the vast chamber to witness the moment. The Nexus core pulsed on its pedestal, casting dancing lights across the murals. Jake could feel its power humming in the air, promising everything he could ever want. He placed both hands on the sphere. It felt warm, alive, eager. Behind him, he heard Ambassador Collins exhale in relief. Earth would finally have its chance. Jake lifted the core from the pedestal. Power surged through him, and for one brilliant moment, he felt connected to everything. The temple, the dragon, the very fabric of space itself. He could feel the binding, ancient chains of energy wrapped around the dragon's essence. With the core, he could command those chains. He could make the dragon do anything. He could also break them. I'm sorry, Jake said, looking back at Ambassador Collins. I'm sorry to Earth and to everyone who needed this. Then he raised the Nexus core above his head and brought it down hard against the stone floor. The crystal shattered with a sound like a planet screaming. Light exploded outward, blinding and pure. The temple shook. Cracks raced across the walls. The delegates stumbled and shouted, shielding their eyes from the brilliance. Jake felt the chains breaking. Thousands of years of binding, snapping like rotted ropes. Energy cascaded to the chamber in waves, and at the center of it all, the dragon threw back its head and roared, not in rage, but in joy. The light faded. The shaking stopped. In the ringing silence that followed, every being in the chamber stared at the dragon. It stood taller now, as if a great weight had been lifted from its shoulders. Its scales blazed with colors that had been dimmed before, and its golden eyes burned with life Jake had not seen in them. "You freed me!" The dragon's voice echoed in every mind present. "After 10,000 years, you freed me." Chancellor Varix found its voice first. "What have you done? That power could have saved your people." "Maybe," Jake said quietly, "but it would have enslaved him. That's not a trade I'm willing to make." The dragon moved forward, and the delegates scrambled backward in fear. But the creature simply lowered its head to Jake, pressing its massive snout gently against the boy's chest. "Worthy," it said aloud, the single word resonating through the temple. Then the dragon spread wings that blotted out the lights above. With one powerful thrust, it launched upward, smashing through the temple's ceiling and into the sky. The delegates rushed outside to watch as the creature climbed higher and higher, its form silhouetted against the stars. Within moments, it was gone. Ambassador Collins grabbed Jake's shoulder, his face pale. "Do you understand what you've done? You've thrown away Earth's future." But Dr. Chin was smiling, tears streaming down her face. "No," she said softly. "He's given us something better than technology. He's given us a reputation." She was right. Within weeks, the story spread across every inhabited world. The human child who chose compassion over power. The boy who freed a slave instead of claiming dominion. Some species called it foolishness. Others called it weakness. But many called it wisdom. Jake returned to Earth 6 months later. He lived quietly in a small apartment, trying to return to normal life. But normal was impossible now. Young people across the galaxy sent him messages, inspired by what he had done. The Council watched humanity with new interest, not fear of their weapons, but curiosity about their character. And one night, Jake's communication terminal chimed with an incoming message. No words appeared on the screen, just an image. A distant nebula painted in purples and golds, and silhouetted against it, a familiar shape with wings spread wide. The dragon was still out there, flying free among the stars. And somewhere in the vast universe, it remembered the human boy who had asked what it wanted, then helped achieve the impossible. Jake saved the image and smiled. He had lost Earth a shortcut to power, but he had gained something he suspected was more valuable, proof that humanity could be trusted with the harder choices, the ones that cost something to make, the ones that mattered.